The other day I watched this film in a series of a website I found some time ago called Films for Action, and this film is called The War at Home. It was done only last year. It talks about the wars between the wealthy and the not so wealthy in America and how it's been going on for basically years. So it's interesting in these modern times with what's just happened in the American situation to look at a film like that. Okay, after looking at the film, I came back to where it was and noticed this guy that produced this film, Scott Noble, also has done another film on plutocracy. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but I'll find out in a minute. And I thought, what in the hell's plutocracy? So I went a little bit further and did some investigation on it and found, of course, what you do is go into Google and put in the word, and this is how you pronounce it.
Plutocracy.
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 So you pronounce it. But it basically says it's a noun, it's government by the wealthy, or a state of society governed by the wealthy, or an elite or ruling class whose power derives from their wealth. So that's what bureaucracy is, which I didn't know about. So basically that's what that film I mentioned about before was all about. Okay, so in looking up that definition, I also found a little bit further down this little bit that says, is America an oligopoly or a plutocracy? Okay, and there's a Wikipedia article about oligopoly. All right, so let's go and have a look at that. Oligopoly. It tells what an oligopoly is, which is a form of power structure in which power rests with a small number of people. So a plutocracy is part of an oligopoly. Oligopoly, I can't pronounce it. These people may be distinguished by nobility, wealth, education, corporate, religious, political or military control. Such states are often controlled by families who pass the influence on from one generation to the next, but inheritance is not necessary condition of oligopoly. Okay, so it talks about all about that, and I read quite a bit about that, and anybody can go to this webpage and look it up over there. And it talks about types of oligopolies, but this one interested me. Intellectual oligopoly, all right? So what's intellectual oligopoly? Okay, so let's open it up and read something what it says there. It says the Nobel Prize in Literature winner, George Bernard Shaw, defined in his play Major Barbara, premiered in 1905 and first published in 1907, a new type of oligopoly, namely the intellectual oligopoly that acts against the interests of common people. And this is a quote by him, George Bernard Shaw. I now want to give the common man weapons against the intellectual man. I love the common people. I want to arm them against the lawyer, the doctor, the priest, the literary man, the professor, the artist, and the politician, who, once in authority, are most dangerous, disastrous, and tronical, I can't pronounce that one, of all the fools, rascals, and impostors. I want a democratic power strong enough to force the intellectual oligopoly to use its genius for the general good or else perish. So it sounded really good, but it says it was done in this play called the Major Barbara. Major Barbara. Barbara, as in a major, and the person's name is Barbara. Female name Barbara and a major. How can that be? So let's go on and look up what Major Barbara is. So Major Barbara is a 3-act English play by George Bernard Shaw, written and premiered in 1905 and first published in 1907. The story concerns an idealistic young woman, Barbara Undershaft, who was engaged in helping the poor as a major in the Salvation Army. And also a little bit further than the Salvation Army later on. But anyway, look at that. I won't put that in this video. In London For many years, Barbara and her siblings have been estranged from their father, Andrew Undershaft, who reappears as a rich and successful munitions maker. Undershaft, the father, gives money to the Salvation Army, which offends Major Barbara, who does not want to be connected with his tainted wealth. However, the father argues that poverty is a worse problem than musicians and claims he is doing more to help society by giving his workers jobs and a steady income than Barbara is doing in helping them by giving them bread and soup. So that's what it goes on to say about that. So that was interesting, how we've gone from a film about something to this play by George Bernard Shaw. Okay, the other thing I found interesting about it is something that applies to myself, right, which I wasn't aware of about George Bernard Shaw. It says here in terms of the, written by, it says the play script reprises several typical Shawnian moves in lacking apostrophes on contractions and other punctuation by having a didactic introduction essay explaining the play's themes and by bending some rules of play scripting for literary purposes. For example, two characters are listed as the woman and the man before Shaw gives them names for dramatic effect. As well, lines in dialectic English are written phonetically. Bill Walker jeers, "What prance salvum they? What price salvation now?" Okay, so I quite often don't use apostrophes, and I just thought, that's my idiosyncrasies because I don't see any need for apostrophes. But George Bernard Shaw didn't use apostrophes. He's supposedly some brilliant man, all right? He's standing up for the ordinary man, I suppose. Also, I quite often write things more phonetical, and sounds like George Bernard Shaw used to do that as well. But anyway, more about the story about this thing, and if you want to look at it, I'll show you how to get the video later on. So that tells you about the synopsis of the whole thing and what Barbara's all about. So anybody can call this up. I'll put some links to all these Wikipedia articles and all these pages that are coming up at the underneath this video. But one of the things is part of the thing at the end of it. It says the production of it, and also some of the background of it, where they think George Bernard Shaw got the name of the characters. Now, Andrew Undershaft, who is the father in the thing, was loosely inspired by a number of figures, including the arms dealer Basil Zadov, I think, and German armaments family Crump. Undershaft's unscrupulous sale of weapons to any and all bidders, as well as his government influence and more potentially his company's method of succession to a foundling rather than a son. Now, I also have to go and look up what foundling is. I won't do that but it basically means that the foundling doesn't have, as a child that doesn't have a relationship with their parents, right? And then his company's method of succession to the foundling son rather than the son tie him especially to Crump Steel. Frederick Alfred Crump died by suicide in 1902 following publications of claims he was a homosexual. His two daughters were his heirs. Undershaft shares a name with a Church of England church in the City of London named St Andrew's Undershaft. Given the district's long-standing status as the financial centre of London, the association underscores the play's themic emphasis on the of religion and economics, of faith and capital. So I thought, when the hell is this St Andrew's Undershaft Church? Now, I've been to that part of London, and I thought I'd look up St Andrew's Undershaft and found St Andrew's Undershaft is the Church of England in the City of London, the historic nucleus of the modern financial centre of London. It is located in St Mary's Axe within the Aldergate ward and is a rare example of a city church that has survived both the Great Fire of London and the Blitz. So there is St Andrew's Undershaft Church, and you'll notice the gherkin, the big representation of the financial district of London. So George Bernard Shaw linked it to there. It comes from oligopoly, and it comes back from the word intelligent oligopolies and also plutocracy. So that's how all this association fits together. So, and that came from a situation where there was, wrong one. Well, go back, sorry. There is, that's a YouTube thing, camera, calendar. Oops, I've lost things now. Chrome. Okay, there, all came from this idea of the war at home. So if you want to watch this video, The War at Home, I suggest you watch it. It's almost a 2-hour video. It talks about the American situation where basically the rich controlled the poor, and that goes right down through across back to the other side of the pond, as they call it, to London, where we've now got a famous building, which is this one here, the Gherkin, and that's where the name links. So this just goes to show you how from one thing you can link to another thing using the internet. I did one of those a while ago, which I'll also put a link in underneath this, showing how just the fictitious character James Bond can link to a thing called the Zimmerman telegram, which brought America into World War One. There we are. Just before I go, all right, a little bit more about if you want to find that movie, two things under the Major Barbara, right? There's at the bottom of this, you can find the bottom of the Wikipedia article. It shows, first of all, where are we? In external links, Major Barbara, that bottom one there, public domain audio book, right? Also, there was a film made called Major Barbara in 1941. And if you want to, if you go to YouTube, there is the movie, all right? So I will play a short part of it, all right? Okay, I hope it's recording. All right. Okay, that's enough. I'll just quickly jump in more other parts of the movie. Hope I'm recording. So you can watch the movie. Unfortunately, I can't get rid of that X up the top there.